Hi, welcome back to Taylrv. We have a special guest today, Tiffany. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to have you back on. So now today we're breaking down home ownership. Tell us
Yes.
uh, how do you get into that?
So, yeah, I work in the South Florida region. So, I'm Tiffany, the South Florida broker on all channels. And so I work in South Florida. I'm licensed for all of Florida. And how you get into home ownership is basically you start with a pre approval. That is step number one. It really doesn't make sense to go looking at properties when you don't know how much you can afford. So you want to get with a lender or a realtor who can recommend you to a lender and then see what are you pre-approved for, if you're pre-approved at all. Some people think that they're going to be pre-approved and then they talk to a lender and realize that they don't have the credit or they don't have the income or they don't have the savings to qualify for a loan. So you want to do that first to make sure that you can qualify for a loan, and then to see how much, and then to go shopping within that price range.
Okay. What are roles at the credit score? Like what's your credit score should be or range from to qualify
It
for?
depends on the loan type. So they all have different minimums. So, for example, an FHA loan has a lower minimum than a conventional loan. The FHA loan has a minimum of 580, and some lenders can go lower than that through additional documentation or additional underwriting. But in general, 580 is the minimum. And for conventional loans, the minimum is 620. But if you're higher than that, then you get better rates. So you want to be as high as possible.
Okay. And then like on average, like what someone should kind of pay for a home or it's like save for down payment
So
if there,
if what?
if there's an average. Like is there an average that someone should save for down payment? Is it like 30,000, 50,000?
Oh, dollar amount? No, there's no dollar amount because it goes by percentages.
Okay.
So it's percentage of the home. So some loans are 3%, some loans are 5%. FHA is 3.5%. Conventional can be anywhere from 3 and up. People like experts generally recommend 20% down. But in today's economy, if you're looking at a home for, let's say, $500,000, 20% down is going to be $100,000. So a lot of people don't have 20% down. In that case, then you would save at least 3% down, 3.5% down, 3 to 5% of what the home price is in your market.
Okay. All right. And can you tell me about like the programs? Are there any programs that help assist you with down payment, closing costs, or anything else?
Yeah, not every, but the state and also the county and also the city has down payment assistance money set aside for buyers. At least they do in Florida. I've heard about it in other states and I've heard about it in other like cities. So
Yeah.
you would just Google or go to your county website or your city website, or talk to a lender about state programs. So the programs are coming out whenever there's funding, and it can be different times of the year. So the state might have money. Right now in Florida, the state has money for hometown heroes. So if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher, if you're assistant principal, dental hygienist, if you're x-ray technician, sonogram technician, first responder, police officer, any of those positions, the state has money up to $35,000 for down payment and closing cost assistance. And so in another state, it might be a different time of the year and it might be a different amount. The county has money in Palm Beach County, they give up to $100,000 for down payment and closing cost assistance. And that happens just whenever the county has money. And you just have to keep checking because it's only, even if they had $3 million to give, that's only going to be a limited amount of people who would qualify, for, who would get the funds, because $3 million goes fast if you're giving everyone $100,000. And then the city itself might have money, like Boca Raton might have money, or West Palm Beach might have money for down payment assistance. They all come with restrictions. So, for example, if it's from the city, then you got to move to that city, right? Like you can't take money from Newark and then move to Princeton, or or wherever you want to go, wherever that city is. So you
Right.
have to, if it's city funds, they have money for homes within that city. So there are restrictions on where you can buy. For county programs, the same thing, that it would need to be within the county, and it can be different cities. There's always restrictions that it needs to be, you can't own a home already. Okay. They don't, this program is for buyers who can't afford a home. So if you already own a home, then you don't need the city money or the county money or the state money. They want to set that aside for people who can't otherwise afford a home. And there are also income restrictions. If you're making, 200,000 for a household, not single, but for a household, or even 150 in a household, you may not qualify for those funds. So there are different restrictions: income, location, assets. Some of them, you can't have more than a certain amount of assets, because even if you don't own a home, but you have $250,000 in the bank, you could buy a home.
Yeah.
So so there are different restrictions, and the different programs have their own restrictions. They have their own income guidelines. Somebody might qualify for one and not qualify for another one. They might qualify for both, but you can usually only use one. So you might qualify for both and then use the one that works better for you.
Okay. And I guess that's the same with the first time home buyer program also.
Yeah. So some of the down payment assistance program, you have to be a first time home buyer, and the government qualifies that as you don't currently own a home and you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years. So if you owned a home and you sold it 5 years ago, according to the government, you are once again a first time home buyer. So it doesn't mean that you never purchased a home. It just means that you haven't owned within the last 3 years.
That's great. Um, okay. So if I'm looking for a home, should
Mhm.
I go to the bank to get a mortgage, or should I look for a mortgage broker? Can you tell me the difference between the two?
Yeah, a bank is open when banks are open. So usually like 9 to 5, bank hours. You don't usually go to a bank and have service at 6 p.m. Sometimes they have a late day, but that's not usually the case. They usually close 5 or so. And then on top of that, the person who deals with mortgages is usually one person for an area. So like if you're going to PNC, maybe they're at the PNC, downtown one day, they're at the PNC that's remote another day, they're at a different branch. So they go to different branches. So you may not see that person in that branch, in your local branch, until next week. With a mortgage broker, they are generally commission based, as opposed to going to a bank. You're working with somebody who's salary based. And so they may not have the same incentives to help as where a broker might work on the weekend, might work after hours, because they want to get that commission.
Mm.
And also, they have different loan packages, they have different rates available. It's usually easier to go through a mortgage broker than to go through a bank.
Okay. Yeah. And so, like, okay, let's say if I do have like a 401k or like in a, some type of investment, or some type of asset, can I also use that for the down payment? Are there any restrictions?
Um, your 401k, there may be some restrictions. I have heard of people taking money out of their 401k. It's like you're borrowing against it. So you take a loan from yourself and then you pay it back with interest, but you're paying back yourself. So it's generally okay. With other types of investments like stock investments, if you know that you're going to purchase a home, I wouldn't put that money into the stock market for multiple reasons. One reason being the stock market is volatile. So if you're planning to purchase a home in 6 months, and let's say you put that money into the market, in 6 months, the market could be down. So you might lose money putting it into the market if you know you're going to purchase within, the next few months or so. The
Mhm.
other thing is if you put money in stocks and then you sell it in order to pay for your down payment, you are now going to have to pay taxes on that gain if there was any gains, and you have to pay short-term capital gains if it's been invested for less than a year. If you know that if that's your plan, I would put it in something like a high yield savings account or like a CD that ends or that you can take it out without much disruption. And yeah, I would do that.
Okay. And then are there other like programs like for minority women? I know you had touched on some of them for in your state for if you are like a nurse. Are there any other programs beyond that?
I haven't heard of programs that are based on gender or family status because those things there's like a protected class.
Okay.
Um, I forget all of them, but you can't discriminate based on gender, based on especially in housing. So if you put up a housing ad and it said no kids, you can't do that.
Oh,
Or if you only wanted to rent to a certain gender, if you only wanted to, you can discriminate based on income. Income is not a protected class, but
right.
gender, family status, race, those are protected classes. And so if you were to offer assistance only to those people, you would thereby be discriminating against the other ones. So that's why housing is usually income restrictions. The qualifications are usually like your location, your job, your income, your credit, because those are not protected classes.
Gotcha. Okay. So just wanted to clarify. Okay. So is it better? Okay. So let's say I'm buying a home for the first time. Is it better for me to buy like a starter home, or would it be better for me to buy like a two family home where I can rent out the other unit and use that as income for my mortgage?
It all depends on your tolerance for being a landlord. It depends on, do you want phone calls? Do you want to possibly evict someone? Do you want to do background checks? Do you want to get maintenance calls that they have a toilet leaking or an AC is not working or the heater is not working? Do you want to do checks into their income, call their employer? Do you want to hire a property manager? So it is like a personal decision. What It's not as easy as just collecting rent from another party to pay for your mortgage. It really is personality. Do you have time? Because it's a job managing another property. So do you have time to do that? If
Mhm.
not, will the rent cover the expense of hiring a property manager? Will the rent cover the maintenance expense? Will the rent cover renovations or repairs? All of those expenses, and do you have desire for that, or would you rather invest it into the market? So it just depends on the person and their personality. Do they have maybe a skill or a trade, like they're a plumber or they know one, or their family works in house? What kind of resources do you have? Do you have access to electricians and contractors and cleaning ladies and such?
Okay. Now, okay, we talked about a lot. Another thing that comes up, should I buy a brand new construction home, or should I buy an older home that's already existing? Um, what's the
So
difference?
it depends on your budget. Generally, a new home is more expensive. Generally, an older home is cheaper. So it depends on your budget. Some people can't afford a new construction home, and all they can afford is an older home. And some people, the area where they want to be, the area where their family is, the area where their kids are already attending school, doesn't have any new construction homes, but they really like that area. So it just depends on, can they afford that? Is it in an area where they want to be? All of these things come into play. If you can afford either one, then I would go with the newer one. I don't usually buy new construction, but if it's like 2 or 3 years old, that's great. Because just like cars, when you buy them brand new, there's a premium. It's going to be more expensive than the house that's 2, 3 years old. But the house that's 2, 3 years old is still, by all measures, still brand new. So I like buying newer homes, but not brand new.
Okay. And then that leads me to the question, should I just buy my dream home, wait and save up to buy my dream home, or should I just buy something, starter home just to get in of owning a home?
I think that people should get into the housing market because if you sit on the sidelines and wait until you can afford the home that you want, that it may never happen by renting. You may never save enough to afford the home that you want by renting. For example, if you're a renter and the home you want is currently $400,000 and you're saying, I'm gonna wait till when? Like until it's 600,000 or like until wait till when? Because chances are that home is just going to get more expensive. And so even in 5 years or in 7 years, it could be now 500,000. Can you afford it now? Like versus if you were to buy something that was 200,000 or 250 in 5 or 7 years, there's going to possibly be appreciation. So now in 5 or 7 years, you have some down payment that you could sell the property, the first one, or you could rent it out, or you could take some equity out to help you with that house that's your dream house. But if you're just going to sit back, there's not a good game plan to get you to afford that house. Versus if you buy the first one, that can act as an investment to get you to the next one. You can sell it, you can rent it, have additional cash flow. So there's all kind of that could be like a stepping stone to the next one.
Okay. Um, and then I guess price wise, try to get what the cheapest home for your money, or is there like a solid of like, I mean, we're in the United States, so things are expensive. So, like if you can afford a $200,000 home versus a $800,000 home, um, should the first time home buyer go with the lowest, like to get in because it'll be easier to, I guess, manage the mortgage, or is there they should go with the middle, or it just depends?
Most people go to the top of their budget. So most people, if you can afford an $800,000 home, you don't want a $200,000 home.
Right.
So most people, if you're looking at $200,000 homes, that's because that's the top of your budget. That's all that you can afford. So most people go as high as they can go, and then get the nicest thing in that range. So whatever your pre-approval is, if it's 300, 400, you're wanting to maximize that to 3 or 4 or 2, whatever, and get the nicest in that price range.
Gotcha. Now, as far as debt is concerned, what do mortgage lenders look at when concerning your debt? So, if you have consumer debt, which is credit cards, if you have student loan debt, um, car payments, I don't know, and other miscellaneous debt, how does that affect your pre-approval?
It affects it because your debt to income ratio can only be about 45%. So what that means is, like, let's say you make $4,000 a month, which is what, 48 $48,000 a year, so 50 grand or so, which is which is pretty common. So you have $4,000 a month. The the bank is going to say that all of your expenses, your student loan, your credit card, your car payment, your housing, all of it cannot be more than about 45% of your income. So at $4,000 a month, all of your debt would need to be less than $2,000. And so a lot of people don't qualify because they have too much debt. If you have a $900 car payment and then your student loans are $500, that's $1,500 right there. And maybe they have some credit card debt. So you're looking at $1,800 in payments. So there's no room for a house because you already have $1,800 of debt. And you can't have more than a certain amount. The government won't allow you to finance 80% of your income. That's just a recipe for disaster. So it has to be, your debt to income ratio has to be low.
Okay. And then how would somebody, what would be the first thing you would tell somebody to get their debt down? Like what out of that credit card, um, car notes, rent, how would they go about getting rid of their debt? Like what would be the main thing?
You want to pay off your high interest debt first. So if you have debt that is like usually credit card debt at 20, credit card debt usually has the highest interest, and then your cars, and then your student loans. But it could be, it could be different. So you want to, if you have anything in the 20 something percent, you want to get that down, pay that off first, because at such a high interest rate, it'll be hard to manage and pay off.
Okay. Um, okay. What other like hitting uh, budget besides like the mortgage? Then you have like you have taxes, you have insurance, you have maintenance. Does that all calculate into your mortgage, or is it just the mortgage and then you're paying your taxes separate, a maintenance, a HOA fee, or anything like that?
Yeah, so most lenders will do PITI, which is your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance will all be combined into your mortgage payment. And this is because if you don't pay your taxes, your property taxes, the county can put a lien on your property, and they can foreclose on your property for not paying your taxes. And so, therefore, the mortgage company wants to make sure that the taxes are paid so that they don't lose their asset. Because remember, the mortgage company needs the house in order to sell in the case that you don't pay your mortgage. So if you don't pay your mortgage, they need to be first lien holder, which means that they get the first right to the property to sell it to be able to pay off the mortgage. Property taxes supersede all liens. The government is gangster. They say we don't care about your mortgage. We don't care about any kind of other second loan equity. We don't care about this contractor lien. When we come to collect, we collect first. Okay, that's how the taxes are, property taxes. So the lender, like in the event that the home needs to be sold and you didn't pay your property taxes, the county would get the house to sell and pay off county liens. And so it's very important that the mortgage pays the taxes so that they can ensure that they remain first lien holder and that they get access to the property and they can foreclose on the property in the event that the mortgage is not paid. So that is why the taxes are included
Okay.
in the mortgage. And then the insurance is also included in the mortgage because for similar reasons, the mortgage company wants to make sure in the event that there's a natural disaster that they can collect, or they can restore the property so that they can remain first lien holder.
Okay. So now let's say like I live in like a flood zone, um, of like, natural disaster. Am I getting a separate type of insurance for that? Or is
Yeah.
that included with the regular insurance? Like what's the insurance that's included in the mortgage, and then what insurance I should have for like the environment out around my home.
So homeowners insurance, just like car insurance, is through a company. It's not that the mortgage is the insurer. So the mortgage is paying whatever company you choose to insure your home. And so that insurer, just like with car insurance, where you can add in certain things like, do you want roadside assistance? Do you want rental coverage? Do you want flood insurance? Is one of the things to add in. You know, you have your liability, you have your hurricane, flood. So that's why you hear about disasters and they didn't necessarily have flood insurance because it's an add-on. You have to pay that as well.
Okay. Are there any creative ways for families to generate more income to help them with their down payment assistance?
Yeah, if they don't qualify for down payment assistance and they want to go the traditional route, which is saving for down payment, my recommendation is to move home for a year and stop paying rent for a year. If you stop paying rent for a year, you can save 1,500, 2,000, $2,500 a month, and that could be 18,000, 24,000, 30,000 in just 1 year from moving back home. Now that may not be an option for everybody because maybe their home, their parents' home or family home is far from their job or in another state, or they don't have a family home to move back to.
Hmm.
So in those cases they can get a roommate to cut back on expenses. And if they don't want to do that, then so housing is going to be the biggest bulk. So either you can get rid of housing, reduce housing, share housing. You can go from a two-bedroom to a one-bedroom. So all of those kind of things to reduce your housing costs because it's usually the biggest cost. If there's nothing you can do there, then you can reduce some of the services that are coming into the housing, reduce your cable, reduce your subscription, reduce your Netflix, your Amazon. Oh, cut out Amazon Prime because there are so many things that people buy that you don't even need. It might even still be in the Amazon box, in the Amazon package, and you're like, I ordered it, but it got here and now I don't need it anymore. So there's a lot of impulse shopping with Amazon. So those subscriptions, cut those down. When you have to go to the store to get it, you think, do I really want this thing, need this thing? Cable can be another $100 a month. You can cut that. Cooking more can be a way to save a few $100s a month, which adds up, over the course of the year. You wouldn't believe how much people spend on eating out, like just going for lunch every day. Even if it's $10 a day, that's $50 a week. That's $200 a month. That's what, 2,400 a year. And that's just one thing that you're replacing. If you replace multiple things or do some of these things in combination, you get a roommate and you stop um, buying lunch and you cut out Amazon, you might get to a point where you're saving $800 a month, which is $10,000 a year. So just little things that can add up.
Oh yeah, I know all about eating out. You look at your credit card, when you look at your credit card statement or your bank statement, and it's just like, I didn't do
$600.
anything with my money but eat out. It's like, I paid rent and some bills and I ate out.
Mhm.
So yeah. Okay, so now families who travel or want flexibility and they're looking for a home that supports both their lifestyle. Um, what should they look for in a home that supports both their lifestyle and financial goals?
Yeah. So if you're traveling, extended travel or seasonal travel, we have a lot of people here in Florida that are seasonal. They come here between November and April because it's super cold in Canada or the North Michigan. We have people like from the northern states and Canada who come down here. They're snowbirds, is what we call them, and they are here November to April. They go back to wherever they're from because now it's starting to warm up. And what kind of properties do they look at? They look at things with low maintenance. So maybe something that has an HOA, that the lawn care is going to be taken care of when you're not there. The pressure cleaner is going to be done when you're not there. Even condos. So condos, all of the exterior issues are going to be taken care of when you're not there. If there's a hurricane, there's impact windows in the newer build condos, so you don't have to board anything up. You don't have to pay somebody to go out to your property to board something up. And we also live in a state, Florida, where there isn't pipes that are bursting, so you don't have to worry about that. So you would want something that's low maintenance, basically low maintenance, and doesn't need a lot of involvement during those times that you're not there.
Okay. And can you just explain to the people like the difference between co-op, condo, house, that type of stuff?
Yeah, a condo is generally in a building, and you own a unit within the condo building. And so, like if there's 300 units, you own one of them, and you can rent out your unit depending on the the rules for the building, the a condo association rules. So usually you can rent it out for a year. They don't like short-term rentals because they don't want so much traffic coming into their building. It's turning over every 3, 4, 5 days. They like, no. But a year is usually fine. You can rent it out, and you own from the walls in. So if there's something that happens, and let's say a pipe burst, that's the condo responsibility because the pipes are behind the walls. So that's their responsibility. This pipe is flowing from one unit to another unit, through floors. So they would have to fix that. If there was something with a roof or a ceiling, they would need to step in because it's going to affect multiple units. A townhouse is shared walls. Whenever you have shared wall here in Florida, they're yeah, just shared walls to the right and left, nothing above you and nothing below you. We don't have basements in Florida. So that's a townhouse. Some people call them row houses. Um, or brownstones. In New York, you have like brownstones. Those are townhouses. They're like in rows, and you come outside, you go downstairs, and you go. Those are what we call townhouses. And then single family is you don't have any shared walls. You don't have any walls that have neighbors. This all four walls lead to the outside. There's an outside all around this house, and that's a single family house.
Okay, great. Well, is there anything else that you want to add to down home? Make it a down. I can't even talk. Sorry. Getting to home ownership faster,
Faster.
like
Um,
kind of speed up the process.
moving. Moving could be a way to get to home ownership faster. So I'm from New York, and I lived in New York, but the home prices were too expensive. So I moved to Florida when I was ready to purchase a home because it was a third of the price. So I moved here in the middle of a recession. It was 2010. So right after the crash of 2008, the home prices were so low because everyone had second homes in Florida. They live in the north, and they had second homes down here. And so when you lose income and you lose a job, you stop paying that second home. You keep your first home. You're like, I need to live here. So
Right.
New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, they saw a recession. But who saw a greater recession? We had greater drops. We had more foreclosures. Was Florida, because of people letting go of that second property, letting it go into foreclosure. And so you can move into a market that is cheaper, and then that might accelerate your pathway to homeownership.
Oh, okay, especially with foreclosure. You think that's the way to go since you could get it cheaper?
So they're hard to find. I mean, in 2008, there were a lot. There were so many, 2008, 2009, 2011, 2012, there were a lot. And the banks have gotten smarter. So they used to sell the foreclosure for what was left on the loan. They said, you have 100 grand left. We're going to sell this home for 100 grand. Now they sell the home for market price, even though it's a foreclosure. The banks have learned that people will pay market price. So now it's not as great of an opportunity because you're paying the same price. And usually with the foreclosures, there's a little bit, there can be a little bit of damage because the homeowner is upset. So they might take the fridge, they might take the stove, they might take the lights, the chandelier. They, it may not be in the best condition because the person left not on the best terms, not on they didn't
Right.
want to leave. So now they're not as common because the lending laws have changed as well. Dodd-Frank came out after the last crash, changed the lending laws, and they put more regulation in place that you cannot over leverage, that you need to be able to afford your mortgage. So you can't, that's why they have the debt to income ratio
Right.
down at 45%. You need to have down payment, and you need to have your own. Even if you get down payment assistance, you still have to put in some of your own money so that people have more of a commitment because they put in their own money. So you can't finance 110% where you're financing everything, including the closing costs that you literally paid nothing to get this house. You can't, the lending laws have changed. So because of that, the equity, people have more equity in their home. So even when the home prices drop, they're not underwater like they were before. So
Mm,
there's not as many foreclosures, and also banks have gotten smarter.
okay. Now, can you tell us about this whole lien? Like, people can go out and buy a lien, I think is which pays their mortgage, and if they don't, the person gets the house. Have you heard of that? Do you know about that?
That's what I was saying. If you don't pay your property taxes,
Yeah.
and they do give you some time. I mean, most counties and cities will give you some time. So your property taxes are due on an annual basis,
Mhm.
like your homeowner's insurance is due on an annual basis, and you pay your homeowner's insurance in advance. Just like your car insurance, you don't pay in arrears. You don't pay like, I got into a car accident last month. Let me pay my insurance last month. You pay it forward, so your car is insured forward. Um, Same thing. Your homeowner's insurance, the same thing. Property taxes, if you don't pay it 1 year, they send you notices. They send you, hey Beverly, they
Hey,
send
Beverly.
you all kind of notices for that property tax payment. And some people somehow sometimes don't get the notice. And this usually happens when there's no longer a mortgage. Because, like I said, if you have a mortgage, the lender will pay your property taxes to prevent this from happening. But some people, if they've owned the home for a long time, or it was passed down to them, it's been in the family for a long time, maybe it's paid off. And then in that case, when it's paid off, the owner is responsible for paying the property taxes. And if you don't pay your property taxes, the county will give you notice. They will give you an opportunity to pay. Just like if you don't pay your mortgage, the mortgage will, there's so many steps before they can take the home. You go into pre-foreclosure. They try to do some negotiating with you. They say, what can you pay? There's a process, maybe 2 years before you actually get to foreclosure. With the county, it's the same thing. They send you notices. They say you have to pay this. You're in default. You didn't pay it. If you ignore all of those notices, or you don't get them, or whatever the case is, the county will put the lien. Um, Beverly had a question, but the county will put the amount due on auction, like a county auction, and someone can pay that lien. Like, say you have a lien for $45,000. You haven't paid your taxes in 3 years. It was 15 grand a year. Your lien is $45,000. Somebody can pay that $45,000, and they now own the home. And the home could be worth $500,000, $600,000. And that's just the way that county liens, it's very important for you to pay your property taxes. That's just
Okay.
the way that they work.
Yeah, because a lot of I've been hearing on the news that a lot of people are getting kicked out of their homes, especially in like Brooklyn, um, and they haven't received these letters and stuff like that. I don't know how that actually works, but okay, after you pay, like say if it's $4,500, right, and you own the home, so you just automatically take over um, the payments, or is it reduced? Is it like how does that actually work?
So 45,000.
45,000.
And then they would have to go through the same foreclosure process as a lender would. You have to go through the legal process to get the owner out of the home. You can't just show up and change the locks.
Oh,
So,
got it.
but what happens is you have the legal right to do that. You have the legal right to begin foreclosure proceedings because you technically own the home and because you paid the lien. So that's number one. They would have to go through that foreclosure process in order to evict whoever is living there. And then what did you say after that? Payments? The
Uh,
payment would be due in full. So if it's $45,000 paid to the county doesn't accept it. No, it's cash. It's cash.
okay. Sorry.
The cash. You have to have $45,000 cash to the county. Yeah. Or you could borrow that cash. You could take out a hard money loan, and but the county is taking cash. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's go. Let's see what Beverly says. She's just turning in. Not sure if you already covered this, but what is the market in general like now for sellers? It seems like a difficult time to sell right now. And then she said, my mother's has purchased property at tax sales in the past.
Right now is a buyer's market in most places in the country. I'm in Florida, so we're definitely in a buyer's market. So yes, it is a hard time to sell because if you sell now, you're going to be losing money. I've seen properties go under contract that are $100,000 less than the listed price. So it was listed for like 780, and we finally got it to six something, 645, 650, something like this. So even property values are down, and then on top of that, buyers are getting less than the listed price, and they're getting seller concessions as well. So sellers are paying commissions, sellers are paying um, buyers commission, buyers agents commission, or giving something to help with um, closing costs, buyers closing costs.
What do you think about people who have like existing homes and they want to like not own a home, um, but trying to take over like their mortgage? What advice do you have for that?
You're saying people who want
Like say I'm a
to.
homeowner, right? And
Mhm,
I'm like, I'm over this. I can't,
mhm,
you know, I don't want to own a home anymore.
mhm,
And say like I have a cousin that has a friend that can afford to take over my mortgage.
mhm.
Um, what advice would you give for people in like in that situation?
Okay, so that's called assuming the mortgage. So a couple of things there. You still have to go through the process of selling that home, even though you're selling it to this person, and even though they're going to take over the mortgage for you, there's still a closing process where the deed would change persons, right? You would actually sell, and there would be a new deed that would be recorded with the county that this person is the new owner, and they are paying the property taxes, and they are assuming the mortgage, which is currently already recorded with the county. So that's called an assumable mortgage. It's great because usually those loans, the older ones, have lower interest rates. So in this case, your friend's friend would get a lower interest rate on the property, but you would still have a sales price. Like let's say you have 200K left on your loan. You would still have a sales price of like you say your home is worth 500,000. There's still a difference there. So like they would still need to pay you the 300,000 and then assume this 200K in loan. And then you're acting as the lender. You're acting as the lender because
Oh,
they are essentially using your loan because your name is still on it. It's still in your name. And then they give you the cash difference to make up the total purchase price. And if they default, like if they don't pay that loan, just
mhm,
like the lender, you can foreclose and then begin the process of getting that property back to you.
gotcha. Okay. Beverly said, here in California too, where I live, there was never very much inventory, and now there are so many houses on the market that have been on for a while.
We're seeing the same. We're seeing houses sit on the market for longer, and then we're seeing them go for less than the original listed price. And then yeah, that's the trend. That's been the trend all year. I think people are scared for a number of reasons. Number one, the interest rate is higher. I think people are waiting for them to go back down. I don't think they're going to go back down. They're higher than they used to be, but they're not at all-time highs. You know, interest rates used to be in the double digits in the 80s. And so we're at a point where that's just what they are right now. Are they going to go back to 3 or 4? Those were historic lows. So no, I don't think they're going to go back to historic lows. And we just got to get comfortable that they are 6, 5, 6, 7%. And it's not as high as it has been in the past. People need to remember, like there are times where it was 10, 11% for your mortgage.
Wow.
So that's one reason why people aren't purchasing. Another reason is economic instability, because in the beginning of the year, I don't know if you remember, but a lot of people lost their jobs. Remember when there
Yeah.
were so many layoffs with the government, there were so many layoffs and changes to certain programs. We're not funding this program, we're not funding that program. So if you're in education, or if you're a government employee, or if you're a local government employee, because changes at the federal level impact people at the state and at the local level. So even if you're not working for the Department of Education at the federal level, if you're a local teacher, you might also be concerned and say, I don't know what's going on. Enrollment is down for our schools. So we're losing teachers, we're losing classes, we're losing advanced classes, we're losing AP classes, we're losing dual enrollment, we're losing IB, we're losing AP. I said that one, but it's like crazy. AP classes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of uncertainty. And so some people don't want to purchase in that kind of a market. We're also having like a little bit of an exodus where people are moving out of the country to other countries. So there's a number of things, there's a number of reasons why people, it's just not, the demand is not there for buyers. So there's the interest rate, there's the economic uncertainty, people are moving, and then also the price of the home. It's not as though the prices are what they were, 5, 10 years ago, but interest rates are higher. Interest rates are higher, and also prices are higher. And so that becomes unaffordable for a lot of buyers who their wages are not keeping up with the increases in price. And in addition to the increases in price, the increases in interest rates, you also have the increases in property taxes, insurance, and other maintenance costs. So in the state of Florida, insurance has almost doubled, and property taxes have gone up as well because of natural disasters. We've had a lot of hurricanes in the last few years, so insurance companies have been paying out, and they're not in the business of paying out, so they need to raise the cost to insure so that they can continue making profit. So insurance has gone up, property taxes has gone up, interest rates have gone up, and prices have gone up. Meanwhile, jobs have become unstable. So this created what we have now, which is a buyer's market. If you have the money to buy, you have the power to negotiate with sellers because there's not a lot of competition.
Okay. Beverly said, if a house has been listed for a while, would you advise to take it off the market and then eventually relist it so it doesn't sit for a while?
I would look at um, how long homes are sitting in your market on average. There's an average that you can tell, like, is it 6 months? So once it goes be if the average is 6 months and it's going into like 9 months to a year, then yeah, I would relist it at a lower price, and maybe take different listing photos. Listing photos can help a lot. Um, yeah.
Okay. So I guess in today's market, what would the advice be like for a first time home buyer? Get the cheapest thing on the block, a fixer upper, just to get in, um, or stay out, you know?
So it depends. It depends on their job stability. Do they feel comfortable purchasing? Do they feel like they're going to still have a job in a year or two or three or four or five? So it depends. If they feel as though, or if they have multiple streams of income, or if they have multiple people in the household, and there's a little bit more certainty. If one person loses their job, okay, we have the other one. If there is a bit of certainty that they can continue making those payments, then I would take advantage of any down payment assistance that they might qualify for, and take advantage of the fact that we're in a buyer's market and that they can negotiate a lower price and also negotiate closing costs to be
Okay.
paid by the seller.
To be paid by the seller. Okay. Well, thank you. This was a great conversation. Thank you for all the information. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. Do you have anything coming up? Where can people find you?
People can find me on all channels at Tiffany.SouthFlorida. So Tiffany.SoFlow broker. Um, TikTok, I post a lot there, so you can find me there. And on YouTube, you can find me there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. See you next time.
It's been fun.